Good day, fellow rockers and moshers. Welcome to the Metal Connection, the connection to all things metal. I'm J Dub, and today on the show we gathered a bunch of guests here, and we are all choosing our three favorite Scorpion albums. So there we are with that. Maybe we'll just do some brief introductions. So right beside me we got Dave here. Dave, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure, Dave Witherall. I'm from East Coast Canada.
Cool, cool. And right below him, we got Peter, and Peter was on the show we did with their 80s female-fronted albums show. If anyone watched that one, so we got Peter right below him. If you want to say hi.
Hey everyone, I'm Peter. I'm from the band Four Trips Ahead, and I'm in New York City.
Cool.
Great singer, by the way. Really cool stuff. Actually, it's kind of random just to say this kind of an intro, but you really give me off like Messiah Marcolin vibes from Candlemass. Like,
Wow.
I don't know if you're like inspired by him at all, but you kind of sound like him, and you kind of have that vibe a bit. But anyway, that's that. Anyway, and then right beside him, we got David, David Biggs here. You can introduce yourself.
Oh, big
Everybody,
dog.
I'm David Biggs. I'm your rock and roll big dog, and I'm from East Coast, United States.
Awesome. And then right beside me, we got Ryan here from Damage Incorporated. If you want to introduce yourself.
What's up, everyone? I'm Ryan Arnold. I happen, like he said, I'm on Damage Incorporated, as well as I have my own band called The Gems of Reality, and I'm from Texas.
Cool, man. And
Cool. And sometimes I volunteer myself to go first. I'm not going to do that right now, so I'm going to actually put Dave on the spot here. So, Dave, if you want to kickstart the show and show off one of your, I guess it'd be your third favorite Scorpions album.
sure, third, eh? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Uh, Animal Magnetism. A third
Awesome.
favorite. Yeah. Again, like we were talking earlier, Jamie, hard to pick a top three. First pick was easy. The second and third, it was hard because I mean, there's so many. Like I could have picked any of the '70s or any of the '80s. Really, those 2 decades really for me for Scorpions are top notch. So yeah, but third of my three there, I go with Animal Magnetism. Great album. Love the track "The Zoo." It's like my favorite track off this. Yeah, great album.
Is that the one with Lady Starlight on it?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
last
one,
track on the first side.
that's one of my favorite Scorpions tracks because it's so melodic. It's unbelievably melodic and just takes you to all these different places, and that's why I love that track so much.
Yeah. And also one of the things I really liked about this album too is I came out in '80, right? So I found with this one, as you know, '70 Scorpions, '80 Scorpions, two separate beasts there, right? '70 Scorps were a totally different animal altogether. We could talk for hours about that. The '80s, this one here, I found this with this album, I found that they started to develop that trademark '80s sound that they had off this album. So yeah, great album. That's my third pick.
And I believe isn't 20th Century Man on that one, track number
Yeah,
two. Track number
yeah,
two. Is that actually a
yeah,
cover
it is.
song?
Yeah,
I don't actually know. Is that a cover song?
I don't think
Oh,
it is.
I'm
You,
getting
I don't think they would be possible to cover a King Crimson song. If
Yeah.
that's what you're thinking, it's
yes, yes, you're right. That's what
Yeah, it's
it's
actually the
like,
fourth.
man.
It's actually the fourth track on the first side.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
right.
yeah, great album.
Yeah, and I know Testament did that really cool cover a couple years back of I think it's just Animal Magnetism, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was familiar with that, but yeah, cool stuff. Yeah, great pick. I don't know how. Yeah, even for me, this was tough, and I imagine it was tough for you to get your top three nailed down. But definitely a good choice. I definitely assumed that was gonna show up at some point tonight between one of our
Yeah,
picks. But cool. Maybe we'll get Peter up next then.
So, Dave, I just wanted to say, literally like 5 minutes before the show, this bounced down to number four for me. So I'm so glad. I was glad you said it. I was like, oh, cool. I don't feel so
nice.
bad.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a great record.
it is. Yeah,
Yeah. And I agree. I was going to say that I find that that album is I see the Scorpions. I don't know how you guys see it, but I kind of see them in three or four different waves. I really look at like the 70s kind of
Yep.
obviously the Uli John Roth, the ending.
Right.
The prog,
Like,
the
yeah.
proggy stuff.
Yeah, kind of early krautrock, even in the first two records, kind of
Yep.
there's a lot of stuff going on there. And then you kind of have the, and after you have the Tokyo tapes, which I absolutely love. I kind of ignored live records for this.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys did, maybe you didn't, but I ignored the live records because I thought this is just going to make it even more difficult. And then I kind of have the 80s thing that kind of, ends, in 1989, 90.
Yeah.
And then they're kind of floating a bit in the 90s with some weird records, a couple of interesting missteps, but I thought it was interesting. And then they've kind of come around and try to reclaim kind of their 80s sound. And I'm excited
Yeah,
because I'm supposed to get
hopefully.
their new album that comes out tomorrow, right?
Rock, Rock Believer. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited to hear it. The first single was great, but I'm actually purposely not listening to it much until
I'm doing the same.
I'm kind of like that too. When like these new bands, like the YouTube, right? They release all these singles, and like I'm not really in the mode to listen to like one or two singles. I want to hear the whole album and then hear it in like the track order it's supposed to be in.
Yeah, it's difficult to do that, so because your vibe is different. But yeah, I'm super excited for that. But so I went for an obvious pick, and I was having a hard time, and I'm hoping that after we do our top three, we can do some honorable mentions as well, or like the ones that were really close. So I'm doing the one that's probably a little more predictable. My number 3 is
Love
Love
at First Sting. Yeah.
So this was I think my second Scorpions album that I bought like as it came out. And there was so much hype around this record, right? And obviously they had already had a hit with No One Like You from Blackout. So we were really excited about hearing this
album.
Yeah, and this record is just really tremendous. I really think that a lot of times people kind of say, oh well, that's an obvious pick. It is a bit obvious, but I would say that in terms of production, in terms of like crafting a record, I really appreciate like when you listen to this, it's kind of like they really were going for raising the bar really high. They kind of like, Matthias Jab's guitar playing on this record, undeniable. He's a tremendous guitar player. It's so tough because he stepped into really heavy shoes. Uli John Roth, Michael Schenker is one of my favorite players, metal hard rock players of all time. And then you have Matthias Jabs. And unfortunately, I think even amongst Scorpions fans, he's really not talked about in the way he should. On this record, he totally the melodic playing, I remember the solos, you can sing them back to each other. They're really great. And I think they're almost songs within songs. You know what I mean? Like when you're listening to even like the bigger hits, when you listen to like Bad Boys Running Wild, or certainly Rock You Like a Hurricane, which we're all probably really tired of hearing. But the solos themselves are actually like songs within songs, kind of like what Michael Schenker did a lot in UFO and the Scorpions. So I really, really love this record. And like I said, the production is great. I actually always thought that the song I'm Leaving You, I was always shocked that wasn't a bigger hit than it was. I think they made a terrible video for it, so maybe that had something to do with it. But I always thought that was like a killer song. And obviously this is Still Loving You, which is like a super mega hit along with it. But this is one of those 80s albums that sold 1 billion copies and kind of deserved to, I always felt. So I think this is a great record, but this is my number 3. But I do want to say, when I say number 3 for Scorpions record, that's quite high. And it was also it's also interesting to me, and the last thing I want to say about this is I think songwriting wise, this is one of those records like Def Leppard's Pyromania the year before, that once this album came out, all these bands tried to write albums like this. So it shows like production wise, song wise, people were all trying to have like, and this ultra anthemic hit, the drum sound was like, everyone was starting to cop it. So I think this album was really important amongst metal and hard rock folks too, because it kind of ushered in a change in sound. And I give them a lot of props for it. And I think that Klaus Meine sounds great. He had real vocal problems about 2 to 3 years ahead of this record. So to be able to pull off the singing and to really rehabilitate his voice like Coverdale did years later when he had his vocal problems, even more props, and then they went on like a 2-year world tour, literally on the back of this record. And he's been able to still sound as, still be a great singer. Says a lot about him and the band. So, yep, Love at First Sting is my number 3.
It's a staple album for sure.
Hell yeah. My stepdad has Rock You Like a Hurricane in his bird mix, and I do not get sick and tired of it, especially the guitar work in the solo. So damn good.
Juicy, yeah.
Yeah, they had some big hits on that album, and that definitely ushered in that big arena rock sound. Because obviously they had some hits, and people were like, oh, really? So people like that sound, eh? So
Yeah.
And I was just going to point out Coming Home. I love that track. It kind of starts off kind of slow and hummy-drummy, and then it just kind of erupts into this big arena kind of metal rock sound. And yeah, Coming Home's awesome. That's a cool track. Really good track. And then obviously Big City Nights is cool too.
Yeah, I think if I'm correct, I believe Still Loving You is on that album.
Yeah, closes the
Yeah,
album.
I love that song. I love that's probably one of my favorite ballads of all time.
It's
Oh.
really great. It's really one of those records that a lot of us in the metal and hard rock community are kind of maybe tired of hearing, much like Back in Black or, like I said, or Pyromania. But if you really, what I was trying to do when I was going through these records was really like say, is this really a great album? Like every song. And, Love at First Sting is just like, it's an all-time winner. There's a reason why it connected. I mean, it was timing and everything else, but it was also a really great album. And this is where they conquered the States. The Scorpions kind of were already legends in Europe, and they just kind of kept coming. And that was when the dam, burst, and they were really great. And I saw this is one of the first, I think it was the first time I saw the Scorpions live was on this tour. And they were all that. They deserved to be the headliners they were. And by then they were such a well-oiled machine, they had already been playing everywhere and done anything. So it made for such a great live show. So yeah, Love at First Sting is my number 3.
Cool. Nice pick.
Yeah, definitely a great pick. And Big Dog, Rock and Roll Big Dog, if you want to go up with your first pick.
Yeah, so we were talking about how great Matthias is on lead guitar and all that kind of stuff, and they have great riffs, and Rudy's really good on guitar. But I think the draw for me for the Scorpions is Klaus's voice and his vocal harmonies. I mean, I don't know of too many singers that are better than him in the hard rock genre. I mean, his vocal harmonies are just, they blow my mind where he gets these from. And when he layers the harmonies on the background of the songs, it just it blows my mind every time I hear these songs. So we're talking about the different eras too, and I'm gonna go with a 90s pick, and my 90s pick is Pure Instinct because I love this album.
Ooh.
And the reason why I love this album is my third pick is because that song Wild Child and I think it was a single. It's super heavy, and when everybody was going grunge and all the rockers were going grunge, they did not go grunge. They got heavier. So you put on Wild Child and that riff, and when those drums kick in, the production is super heavy. That's heavy metal right there. They're not going grunge. This was what, 96, right at the peak of the grunge era, probably.
No, I think grunge was slowly at that point dying out at that point.
Yeah, maybe 94 was the peak, 93.
Yeah, 93, 94, somewhere around there. Yeah.
So the 90s were a weird era for the Scorpions, when Eye to Eye, I think, was 99 or something.
I think I know. I think I know what was coming around that time was that new metal stuff. That's what was coming around that time.
So if you listen to the production on this thing, it's crisp. The drums are crisp. The ride cymbal, and it's like every time I hear this and I hear that first crack of the snare drum, I'm super impressed by this album. Granted, half of it is kind of like ballads.
I was gonna say, David, it's really interesting that you picked this. I want to give you props for picking this record because I think production-wise, you totally nail it, and I agree with about Klaus. My only issue is just I feel like there's so many ballads on that record, which kind of to me weighed it down. And there's some of the ballads are good. I don't mind a ballad or two, but there are a lot of ballads on that record.
Yeah, half it's kind of ballads. My favorite songs are the first track, Wild Child. Stone in My Shoe, which is really heavy. Oh Girl, I Want to Be With You, where he does that whole do thing. I absolutely love that. Every time I hear it, I have a smirk on my face and I crank it in my car with the windows down. And I'm just, I'm air drumming and I'm driving at the same time, so it must look really weird. But yeah, this is I listen to this album fairly regularly, and from it's not everybody's favorite, but I love it. So
My favorite track on the album is "She's Knocking at My Door." I think it's the very last track.
you mean are you the one?
Isn't there? She's knocking at your door.
Nah, I don't think that's on this album.
That's on that record.
It is?
No, that's actually, you know what? That song, I'll tell you, is on the Euro import and the Japanese import, Jamie. So if you have the domestic, it's not on there. It's
right, bonus track.
It's actually track 12 on the Japanese import. And yeah, so if you have if Japanese and actually the European import is the same, because it's weird, at least I think so, but I definitely know it's an import only. And that is actually one of the best songs on that record. I don't know why it's on the American record.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Signature there.
But,
I would have gotten rid of one of the ballads.
Yeah, now I gotta get the European version of this now.
Yeah,
that cover got banned, I think, at some point because of the nudity.
oh, that's funny. I stumped Dave there for a second. I'm like, my favorite track's "She's Knocking at Your Door." He's like, "That's not."
I was like, what?
what?
No, I gotta get the import version of this so I can hear that. It's awesome. Yeah, sometimes it's weird when some of these bands, sometimes their bonus tracks are better than the album tracks from the regular album.
Dave,
I'm actually not.
I'm going to upset you also, David. There is a single that is also from around that time, and I think it's from that album. It was '96, and there's a song called "Kiss of Borrowed Time" that's not on that record either. And there might be another bonus track which I'm not remembering. But I remember that this album had a bunch of bonus stuff because at the time I was managing a CD store and in the Village, and we see all sorts of crazy imports and metal stuff, and a lot of the metal stuff wasn't selling like it used to unless you were diehard fans. And obviously I was still grabbing anything that came in, and I remember that there was like a weird CD single of one of, I'm trying to remember what cut it is. I don't remember what cut it is, but whatever was the single, maybe it was When You Came Into My Life. If you look for that CD single, there's one or two unreleased tracks as well. So
That's a great song too.
Yep, it's one of my favorites on the album. But there are extra bonus cuts on there, so which is cool. So it's gonna be like a reinvented record.
So I've got homework to do after this then.
Yeah, I'm actually not familiar with that album, to be quite honest with you.
Oh, when I first heard it, when it came out in '96, I was on it. I'm like, this record's awesome. Because I bought it. I think I bought it as a new release back in '96.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is awesome. This is great.
That right there is the last album that I own by them.
Yeah, I think my stepdad owns that, but on CD. So I noticed I recognize that artwork anywhere.
Yeah, that's where I stopped.
I've never seen that on vinyl. That's amazing.
I could see, Dave, why you would have stopped on that record, because that record kind of was like, oh, but
it did have some good tracks on it though.
Yeah, but as a whole record, I kind of felt like there were a bunch of records around that time where they were swimming a bit. But
actually, this version here, this is like it's like a limited edition. It actually came with a bonus EP. Ooh. And it's got 4 extra tracks on there, and it's actually really good. Like it's better than the album itself. Yeah, it's Lonely Nights, Destin, His Latest Flame, and Daddy's Girl. I don't know if you're familiar with those tracks.
It came with a CD?
What's that?
It came with a CD, you said?
No, another LP.
Oh, another LP. Oh.
It's a dual LP. One of them's an EP.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
you can get that's also a limited edition. That's a European import version.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's German, probably German, right? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it is German. Yep.
I wish I had that.
Yeah, it's great. But you know what? I didn't mind this one. It had some good tracks on it. Alienation is one of my favorite tracks.
Alienation kills.
Yeah, I love that track. Yeah.
The video was kind of weird.
Yeah, they had weird videos.
Yeah, I think a lot of those bonus tracks and B-sides, they ended up on like a compilation later on called Taken B-Side. And And
Really?
really, there's a lot of really cool stuff that made me like scratch my head thinking, why didn't these songs make the album sort of thing? And but when they released that compilation of like, it's actually a good album all in itself. That I believe it's just called Taken Beside. I don't know if it was official or whatever, but yeah, cool stuff. Yeah, definitely a good, interesting pick on that one. Definitely caught us all off guard. And
That's what
Ryan,
I
if you
do.
well, actually, it's gonna make me feel better about some of the picks that I have then, because
Yeah.
well, if you're going there, well, it's not gonna make me feel bad about some of my picks then.
Yeah.
I've opened
I
the
like it.
I'm going.
floodgates.
Yeah,
like the
you've
beginning.
opened the floodgates for me to bring up my number 3, which is a more relatively recent album. I think from I believe 2010, Sting in the Tail.
Yeah.
Oh,
Their supposedly last album,
Right.
because they were obviously at the time they had said that this was going to be the last time I'm doing the tours and they were going to retire and stuff like that. Well, we all know how that ended up. They're still making music and touring to this very day. But I remember hearing about this. I was like, oh, cool. Unfortunately, I do not own it, unfortunately, but at some point I did own it. But remembering this album as I'm going through it again, Jesus, oh, fuck. I just remember songs if I could pull it up here. I just remember it. It was just like a good hard rock album, coming off of Humanity Hour 1, which to me, I absolutely love that album because, well, I don't know if anybody knows this, but I'm a sucker for concept albums.
Yeah,
And
I like that album.
Yeah. No, I do too.
no. You guys are lying to me.
We
You
we
guys
were
are
never
lying
heard
to
it.
me.
We were talking about Humanity Hour 1 before some people joined in our pre-chat here, and I was like, if someone were to like kind of skip through that album, they'd be like, oh, this album, there's not much going on here. But
yeah,
when you
yeah.
play it in full, it actually is kind of cool. It's kind of good.
Yeah, it's a really good hard rock album. And remember listening to probably the first 4 songs, and I was like raised on rock, liked it. I loved the title track, Slave Me, The Good Die Young. Just a pretty damn good hard rock, heavy. They weren't metal at this time, but obviously they would. I think later when they made like that Come Black album, where they just re-recorded a lot of their old classics. Like I think they re-recorded The Zoo, No One Like You, Rock You Like a Hurricane on there. They just re-recorded some of those stuff on there, and just remember loving this album and just like. I'm jealous you got that version, but I had the regular. I'll get to that one later, but I got the regular jewel case version, and just absolutely was blown away by it. Never listened to the whole thing and wasn't sick and tired of it. Of course, I was just a teenager at the time, and just listening to them for the first time all the way through, and just loved that. But Sting in the Tail, a great hard rock album, and that is my number 3.
Oh,
Wow, you guys are really throwing me. I'm a little bit dizzy now. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I apologize, but I had to bring up some recent stuff because, like I said, I got into them more recently than all of you. So
Yeah, no, I like that album. I think some of the newer Scorpions, like Return to Forever, and that one, they're kind of like it's very fun. It's like fun party rock, right? It's
Yeah.
funny. They always do mention the word rock everywhere. It's like let's rock, and what was the other one? Anyway,
raised on
rock. Let's rock. Everything's let's rock.
Yeah, and even another one on here, Rock Zone, Let's
Yeah,
Rock,
they're-
Spirit of Rock. I mean,
they probably kind of retire the term the
nice.
rock. They kind of got to retire that word rock in the title, but
Yeah.
yeah, they were definitely having fun. I thought I like that album, and if we were
Yeah.
to do a top 5, I could actually see myself sticking Sting in the Tail in my top 5, possibly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Possibly. Like it is.
I probably wouldn't, because I want to listen to some of the other Animal Magnetism, Love at First Sting all the way through, Hell, even what the album with Loving You Sunday Morning, I definitely would put that in there. But the other two would definitely be, the top 2 would definitely be guaranteed in the top 5 at the very least.
Jamie, I'm afraid to hear yours.
It's not too bad actually. I don't even own it, so I'm hoping somebody's got it sitting beside them. It was a huge hit for them. Crazy World. It was a huge hit for them.
Oh, Dave's got it.
They sold a
If-
ton of albums.
Oh, nice.
I'd say I think of that. Isn't that
Nice.
Scorpions' highest selling album of all time? I think that might have been, and I just never got around to it. I'm like, oh, this is so easy to get. I can get it so cheap, and I just never got it. But I do love that album. I was kind of teetering back and forth between choosing Love at First Sting or that. And I think because Dave chose Love at First Sting, I was like, oh, okay, I'll go Crazy World then. I don't have a problem. But there's some great tracks on there.
Oh,
like,
yeah, that's got the Winds of Change
album.
on here. Yeah.
besides the fact that it was super popular, was super mainstream, like that's the album they hit. Like, well, they were mainstream before, but then they really hit the big time with that album. But
Yeah, especially the song Wind of Change, basically.
but there's still some bangers on there. That's an undeniable album, regardless of its popularness, right? Like, Don't Believe Her, Tease Me, Please Me. What
Yeah.
else? Hit Between the Eyes is just,
Yeah,
you can't deny
Jamie.
that.
Kicks After
Jamie.
Six is really good.
Jamie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason why this album is so good, in my opinion, even though it came out in '90, it still has that '80s sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you still had some bands that had that 80s sound. I think
It still had
Queen-
the '80s sound.
Yeah, Queen's
Now-
Ride comes to mind because Empire sounds so much like it sounds like it's in the 80s.
And when that came out, they had the '90s sound. Right? They
Yeah.
changed when that came out.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
also
little more bluesy on Face the Heat, a little bit more like maybe bluesy, you'd say, but
Yeah.
I was going to say to Dave's point, I think, I mean, they also, this album is produced by Keith Olsen, who kind of,
Ooh.
yeah. So, Keith usually, I also think that Keith tends to kind of, or he passed now. So Keith tended to really pay attention to lyrics and hooks and big production. So, you still, I think to
Oh,
Dave's,
well, it ain't Keith Olsen. I look on here. Oh, no, wait, this is Face the Heat. I'm looking at
I know.
Face the Heat.
Keith
Yeah,
Olsen.
Keith Olsen. Yeah, Keith Olsen on here. What is he? Holy crap. Yeah, he's done a lot of things on here.
Yeah, I wasn't. I'm not. I have a mixed feeling about this record. I always felt like this was, if you took Love at First Sting and you went more pop with this record.
Oh.
I felt like a lot of it is like this. Some good songs still on it. I agree. And I think that it's not surprising. And obviously, Winds of Change is such an important song for them, and the timing was great, and it's a very personal lyric. It's one of those like kind of overplayed, cheesy songs, but it still sticks with you because it was sincere. I always felt like the Scorps were being sincere there, and and they were inspired, and they wrote the song that connected with people, and I thought it was really cool. I also thought Send Me an Angel was like kind of like it was another hit, but it was actually deserving of being a hit. But yeah, I feel like this is a really a bit sheeny for me, but I still think the songwriting is really good overall.
Yeah.
I would like a bit of a more harder edge over
Yeah.
your
I
songs.
can see that.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned with Keith Olsen, one of the heaviest things before the Scorpions album he did was freaking No Rest for the Wicked with
Yeah.
Ozzy, and that was the debut with Zach Wilde. Like, and he
See,
even did Slip of the Tongue with Whitesnake, which was the debut with them with Steve Vai. I mean,
But I
Christ.
think that you make a really good point, Ryan, to that. That would be, there's a big difference to me in how awesome that Ozzy album is and how not so awesome that Whitesnake record is. It's probably the only
Slip-
Whitesnake record.
It's
that
Slip
I'm
of-
not so
I
crazy.
like it because I'm kind of a Steve Vai fan.
I am too. I am a Steve Vai fan too. I don't fault Steve Vai. I think the production is a little too. I think that Crazy World is cool because he found Keith Olsen went somewhere in the middle. It's not quite as crunchy as that awesome Ozzy record, because I love the record, No Rest for the Wicked. But to me, the Whitesnake thing went way too over, like pop glammy kind of sounding for Whitesnake, which was weird. But I think for the Scorpions, he found like a middle ground where how do I still make them relevant, have some pop elements, but there's still some rock and stuff. And the songwriting, again, I'll say the songwriting is really good on that record. So yeah.
yeah, definitely my favorite track on the album is Hit Between the Eyes, and
Yeah, good
there's
track.
Luster Love is awesome too. Great harmonic, like melody, harmonics with Klaus there. And even as the back of the half, as you get to the back of the half of the album, it's pretty solid and consistent all the way through. And I think Dave did mention kicks after six. So yeah, I think that album's undeniable, regardless of how mainstream and popular it was. And yeah, I definitely don't feel bad after Dave's making his picks. I was like, he opened the floodgates there, so.
Yeah, now opening it up for me to pick
like-
Sing of the Tail has been number 3.
Yeah, I went through all these albums today in general, and I was just like, I even knew before, like, this album is undeniable, regardless of how popular it was, and yeah, I don't have a problem making that in my top 3. Either Love It First Sting or that. Tied for 3. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. But yeah, Hit Between the Eyes is a full-on classic banger. You can't go wrong with that. Just that track alone probably could have made my top 3, but no, it's lucky the rest of the album's pretty good too. So, cool stuff, yeah. And maybe we'll get Dave. You're up next here.
Right on. Okay, my number 2 album.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if this album was going to show up at some point.
Yeah.
It was going to show up at some point for me, at least.
Yeah.
My number 2 album. And actually, this is the second album I heard from them. Love at First Sting was the first album I ever heard from them a long time ago, which made me an instant fan, and searched out some of their other albums. And this is the second album that I ever got from them was this one right here. And yeah, love this album. Definitely, it's staple 80s hard rock metal sports, man. What can you say? It's a rockin' album. Blackout, love that track. Can't Live Without You. No one like you is my favorite track.
Yes, love that song too.
Yeah, and I love this cover. I don't know about you guys, but I just love the cover of this album.
And it had some heavy, crunchy riffs in this one too, right?
It is. It's a heavy album.
Now Dynamite and even China White kind of has that slow, kind of heavy, kind of pacing going on there.
Yeah,
The track Arizona's kind of a sleeper.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think out of the '80s releases, I think this is probably their most hard hitting. I think, in my opinion. Yeah.
There definitely was kind of a heavy metal guitar tone on most tracks. Just all the blackout, the blackout love.
Yeah, all
Great
the love for Blackout.
Yeah.
This would be a crime if Blackout didn't make the show, so I knew it was going to come up.
Yeah, definitely.
I was actually trying to think of a way. I was just actually thinking before the show. I'm like, Blackout's going to come up for sure. It's like maybe it's an opportunity for me to throw in something else, but I was like, well, that's kind of ridiculous. Well, I've done that here and there, but I was like, Blackout would have to be kind of in my top as well. So, but I was like, maybe I could just swap it out with something else. But
I was almost going to put Love at First Sting in there over Blackout, but I chose Blackout.
Yeah, when I was listening to it over, I was like, there is some crunchy heavy metal stuff there that we're getting into. Probably not front runners for that, but yeah, definitely this album's undeniable for some of that stuff. Can't Live Without You. Yeah, great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No, cool stuff. We kind of kept the Blackout short, although it quite possibly is going to pop up more later on.
Yeah.
Peter, if you want to go up next here.
This was my number 2 as well. Blackout was number 2, and I was struggling between this. I agree. I think that, like what Dave was saying, this edges out Love at First Sting because it's, to me, it's still rooted. There's still a little bit of an underground vibe. It's definitely hooky and melodic, but it's heavy. And I love this record. I mean, in a lot of ways, production-wise, song-wise, like this is kind of a great balance. It's like a perfect balance. And I agree, the album cover is great. I remember being a kid and you pulled out this and you see this band shot of them and you're like, whoa, I need to go see them now. Like the whole thing was like killer. So I technically this is my number 2, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to sneak in something else because I was getting very upset by not putting this in. And I would say that if I had to, in an alternate universe,
Ah,
this would be my number 2. And I felt like I was saying to myself, I bet you a lot of people are going to pick early 80s Scorpions. So I kind of said, if I was doing an alternate like list, what would be my number 2? And I would say that Taken by Four, I would just, because it didn't quite make my list, but I would say if I had to pick an Uli record, yes, awesome. You got the great Euro album cover. Yeah, so it would be Taken by Force. So I'm putting in an alternative since Dave stole my pick, which is fine. And this record is just amazing.
It is.
Amazing. I mean, The Riot of Your Time, just really, really great. You're a Light. He's a woman, she's a man, which people.
I was just going to say that. Love that track.
Well, great song. Yeah, I mean, this is just incredible. And the Sails of Turin is just, oh my God, just beautiful, epic. And this to me is also really, it holds a special place in my heart because when I got into it, I went back and started buying all their records. This was actually like, it felt like a culmination of like the end of this era. And so the songs are majestic and really cool. And Klaus sounds amazing on this record. And I felt like, and I'm not trying to diss Klaus or anything, but also I think that his pronunciation, his English, and like the way him singing in English really came together on this record. And it's just fantastic. It's a really cool record. So this is my alternative to my number 2, Taking Out Blackout, but I love this record. This is a record I go to, and Uli is a great guitar player, but this album, I felt like the songs, the guitar playing, and even the production kind of come together. So This would be my alternate universe number 2.
Cool. That's a cool alternate.
I'd say Sales of Sharon, I say whatever, but that's definitely one of my most played all-time Scorpion songs out of all the albums. So that's definitely like an essential track and even essential album in general. Yeah, cool stuff. And we'll get the rock and roll big dog up next.
So that's interesting because that was actually my second pick. Taken by Force was my number 2 pick.
Oh, that was your number 2. Sorry, David.
That's okay. I was like, I'm glad someone else picked it because I thought it was going to be overlooked. But the reason why I love it so much is that, obviously the songs, the production, and the vocals. But that when I first heard Steam Rock Fever, when it has that, what is it, like that piston, and I'm like, what is this? And like I thought it was annoying at first, but then after I listened to it over and over and over again, I'm like, that's a hook right there. That's something that I've never really heard before. So it's really, really cool. And then The Sails of Sharon is probably one of the greatest heavy metal songs of all time. I mean, it's got that kind of that Hendrix. What Uli did was that he loved Hendrix. And I think he incorporated a lot of Hendrixian stuff in there, if that's even a word. And Sails of Sharon has that kind of that feel to it with some of those Hendrix chords and the groove to it. And, I actually like Uli's singing. I know a lot of people object to it, but I actually like his singing. I think it doesn't have a lot of range, but I feel it's like very authentic. And whenever I hear him sing on a Scorpions album, I'm like, he's got a lot of balls. When you've got Klaus in the band, and he's gonna sing a song. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So I thought, and it's kind of like the Kiss thing. It's like they got Gene and Paul, right? So it's kind of like having 2 different bands. You have 2 different singers. It's not just the same guy doing the same stuff over and over again. You've got 2 different guys. Yeah. So you've got 2 different guys, and it's like having 2 different bands all at once in the same concert. So that's why I like all these bands that have multiple lead singers, and it just makes for a much more exciting experience, and I think a more dynamic experience. And Scorpions is more dynamic than with Uli's, and I think this album, I really, really love it. And I've got both. This is the 50th anniversary, I guess, reissue, and then this is the German maybe 90s import.
Or actually it could be 80s import, because a lot of the stop things were, when I was in Germany the first time, I bought so many, quote unquote imports, and they were just like all like, do you remember like we used to have the Nice Price?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. It was like that. And you could buy, honestly, I remember buying the whole Scorpions catalog because you couldn't get it in America at the time on CD. I remember paying like literally like a few bucks for every album. because they were so like common,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, it's a great release.
I love Uli, so that was bound
Yeah.
to come up for me.
Yeah, I dig the tracks. I've Got to Be Free and You're Lucky. You're Lucky. Those are two more good tracks.
You're
on
like,
it.
so I think Halloween covered "He's a Woman, She's a Man,"
Yeah.
and they made it like really kind of almost like a thrashy version of it.
Yeah.
Like it was a speed metal version. There was like a lot of bass in it, and I'm like, whoa. So then I went back and I listened to the Scorpions song because it brought it to my mind again to go listen to it, and I'm like, it's a really, really great track that, it's kind of buried towards the end of the album. It's the second to last track. But I mean, that's a great album. It's just so cool. Such a cool song. And another one of those risque covers that I guess got banned in the United States. I don't know what's so risque about that. Just dudes in a cemetery shooting at each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, Guns.
That was one of those. That was a band cover.
Yeah, that was banned completely.
So I mean, compare this to say like Masters of Puppets. I mean, Masters is from '86. This is from what, 78 or something, 77. So I guess by '86 they were okay with the.
Yeah,
With the,
77, yeah.
Yeah,
But I think also the difference is also it's like real people. So I guess it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, the Scorpions, they were famous for doing all those risque covers. I mean, the Virgin Killer covers, the most notorious, obviously, of them all.
Yep.
But I don't know what they were thinking.
No.
Somebody wasn't thinking very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was another album for me that definitely could have made my top 3 on any given day. Yeah, that album that's definitely my favorite '70s Scorpions album. So yeah, that's definitely an essential. Ryan's not here, so maybe I'll just go next, and it's not going to be a super thing because we've already talked about this album. Oh, we'll go to mine anyway, and we'll go back to Ryan for a second. But anyway, it's going to be a quick one for me. My second is going to be Blackout. Sorry. And yeah, it's probably already came up a few times already, so kind of last to the punch here. But yeah, it's still undeniable for me, even if I'd like to just throw in something else just for the sake of showing something different that people already have. It would be in my top 3 regardless, or top 5,
Yeah,
top
yeah.
3. But yeah, it's undeniable. As much as I've heard this album a ton, yeah, Can't Live Without You, Blackout. It's just iconic Blackout heavy metal song. And there's some heavy guitar work going on with Now and Dynamite, and yeah, that slow plodding China White, a 7-minute song on China White, but it's kind of got that slow kind of ploddy kind of chuggy thing going on there a bit. Well, not chuggy, but that melodic kind of slow kind of chug thing going on. But
Yeah, wow, almost 7 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Blackout is great stuff, and obviously that cover is just iconic for heavy
Yeah.
metal rock band.
Love that cover.
Which is weird because it's just a guy kind of just like screaming, but I don't know. Maybe it's just I don't know why it's so cool.
It stands out.
The
Like,
four,
maybe we can figure out like why is it so cool? Because in general, when you look at it, it's not that cool, but
No.
it is. I don't know what it is.
kind of is.
I think they have that's the quirky German humor. They have some, different countries have different types of humor, and I think that's just an example, par for the course with the German humor.
And some of the early pressings also, which I always thought sounded cool. This one is my banged up early pressing, but it's slightly embossed, so it makes it kind of pop a little bit more. And it's not Rudy Schenker, even though everyone used to think that it was Rudy Schenker on the album cover. So not him.
Like I almost imagine if this was if another band had a similar cover, other people would be like, "Oh, that sucks," but then. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if that was some other 80s glam band or whatever and put that album out in the late 80s, people would be like, this is one of the terriblest covers ever.
Yeah.
But then here we are saying it's awesome.
But to be fair with the Scorpions in general, if you pull out like song titles and you give the song title to any other group, people would have been like, what is this crap? Like, Rock You Like a Hurricane. If you explain that to anyone or had any other band do it, you kind of be like, what is it? That's ridiculous. But Scorpions sell it, man. They just they do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pete, Your cover was like coming embossed, was it?
Slightly embossed, yeah. The around the glass, the
Yeah.
sharp glass. Did you know? Is yours like that?
No, mine's an original Canadian press. Is your a US press? Obviously,
And
right?
it's I think it's just the US press that had
Yeah,
those. And unfortunately mine is not, like the one that I had that's embossed is not in the, it's like, kind of a little banged up because I played it to
Yeah.
death. But my other one, the German version is not embossed.
Yeah, this is a Canadian one. This is not.
Yeah, but it's also
Yeah,
lighter.
this ain't.
Yeah, I know that I see. Can you hold up for pressing? Yeah, because yours, it's interesting too. The coloration is very different. If you notice,
Yeah.
yours just kind of got like a lighter blue thing going on, and the US one went very like, sell this record, make it
Mm.
shiny, make
Yeah,
it
shiny. Yeah.
awesome, whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, well, Ryan's is in the sleeve, so it's probably, it's in the sleeve, so
Yeah,
it's
it's in a sleeve, as you can probably tell.
anyway,
All right.
so yeah, Ryan, we skipped you for a second because you were gone, but so I went
Yeah.
with the black. That was a quick one anyway, but we'll jump back to you and get your second one.
All right. Well, my second one isn't Blackout. It is 2007's Humanity Hour 1. That is my number 2. I actually like that. Listening back, it was really heavy, but I look now as I gotten older, this kind of feels like the band. Take away the concept for a second.
Oh.
This kind of sounds like the band's Painkiller in some cases, because it is really, to me, it sounds pretty damn heavy. Like, some songs sound really heavy, especially I think Hour 1 on there. Fuck. You think that, but say that now, you're like, ugh. But back then, me getting into them, I think, holy shit, this is really freaking heavy. Like, there's.
I don't know, Ryan. I gotta say, and I dig a lot of weird records, and you can come at me because I'm gonna mention a Scorpions album that everyone hates, but I actually find some redeeming qualities in it. This album, to me, there are moments I appreciated. The two things I appreciated were the concept thing, because I thought it was cool that they were older and like, let's try to do something different. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
The second thing that I'll give you, totally a heavier record, especially at the time. I thought that was cool. But I don't know, dude. I mean, the production on this, Desmond Child and James Michael, I feel like it was trying too hard to be kind of like a little bit like a modern record. And I don't mean modern, like it's okay to write modern music, but more like it was kind of going into territories that, I don't know, I felt like they didn't seem as comfortable on this record.
Yeah.
I felt like it was trying a little hard for me. That was my issue. It reminded me a little bit of, you were mentioning, it reminded me a lot of that Judas Priest record with, what's the album with Loch Ness on it, the later record?
Nostradamus?
Nostradamus, yes.
Yeah, they did that the year after that, and I like that too.
See, well, there you go. Like Nostradamus to me, I thought was terrible. You know what I mean? And I don't even want to talk about Loch Ness. Like it sticks out to me because it's so terrible, and like it makes me laugh.
Isn't that Angel of Retribution though? I think isn't that Angel of Retribution?
No, Angel of Retribution isn't so bad. It's trust me, it's Nostradamus.
I don't think I remember. I don't
maybe it
remember
is.
Lost. No, I don't think Lost. It was on Nostradamus.
Loch Ness is on Angel of Retribution, I'm pretty sure.
Is it?
Yeah, that's a good
I
album.
think it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is. But then you realize because they were taking on with Priest, and you're right. Some of those bands were older and wives were trying to go do something. I always like bands, to take a risk. There's a reason Metallica is one of my all-time favorites, and they took a risk with Load and Reload and the Black Album and stuff. Because I grew up on that stuff. So this is why. Technically, that was my first outing with Scorpions. Beforehand, I was kind of a casual knowing about them. Rock You Like a Hurricane I knew about, but really didn't get into them until that album. So me being 16, 17 years old when it came out, so it was like, holy shit, this is pretty damn heavy. So if you say that, I can understand that, but if this were 17-year-old me, I'd be like,
I think 17-year-old me would have been like, dude, you guys are not Queensryche and this is not Operation Mindcrime. So this kind of, I probably hated this even more actually and been less forgiving. Jamie, you're right. Loch Ness is on Angel Retribution, but Loch Ness to me is what is like, it's like Priest went wrong. They grabbed that track and they said, let's make a whole weird concept record that plods just like that's why I always associate Loch Ness with that terrible concept record Nostradamus. But this record reminds me of a better version of Nostradamus, which is still really bad. And I don't know, I just can't, like, none of the songs really, I kind of barely remember them. I remember listening to this a few days ago, just a little bit, because I know we're doing this program. And I was like, oh, like production wise, I get it. I'm a Desmond Child fan when he writes with like Kiss and a lot of the pop stuff. You know, Alice Cooper and the million other bands he's written with. I don't know, this record to me felt like it was a it was a valiant effort, but I don't know. Compared to like some of the stuff we're talking about, top three, I don't know.
Yeah, you would think if I had been if I had been a bigger Scorpions fan, it probably wouldn't have been top 5 at the very least, maybe, because I knew for a fact it probably one of those that I would guarantee at least it would stay in top 5. But it would probably at best be 5 because, you know, it still holds value because it was the first Scorpions album I ever got. So
I totally get it. I get it. David, you look like you're gonna lose your mind over there.
yeah, David, you opened the floodgate for me to end up picking Sting in the Tail and Humanity Hour
all your
1.
fault, David.
Well, I'm glad I could facilitate that.
Well, I'm actually with Ryan on that because I would prefer Humanity Hour over Pure Instinct, that's for sure. And it's even kind of surprising for me because you would think like someone to me, you know, kind of like, you know, heavy metal and extreme music, that I wouldn't like Humanity Hour because a lot of it is kind of mid-paced. And if someone were to just skim through the tracks real quickly, they'd be like, "There's no bangers here. This is junk." But I don't know. It actually is one of those albums that kind of has like a cool kind of vibe thing going throughout it, and not musically it doesn't remind me of this album, but the style and like the vibe and the pacing of the album in general kind of reminds me of what Bruce Dickinson did for Skunkworks.
No.
So again,
Skunkworks is a work of genius, though, my friend. I love that you mentioned that record because that record is fabulous. But you know what? See, that's where I agree. They went for trying to do that kind of modern kind of metal without. I'm not going to run off and get my vinyl of that, but I love Skunkworks. We could do a whole show on Skunkworks alone. I think it's a great.
Yeah, and then you realize what came after it. These two freaking bangers.
But see, I love those records too. But the thing is, what I would say to you, Jamie, is that I don't know. I feel like Skunkworks, and even where you held up Chemical Wedding and stuff like that, there to me, the songwriting is still very like memorable. Like it catches me. Like I said, I think this album, the idea of Scorpions doing a concept record was totally exciting for me. I was like into it. And I like that the idea that they went heavier again, but I don't know, the songs don't stick to me like Skunkworks do. The first time I heard Skunkworks, I was like, I remembered all these melodies and I thought, wow, this is thrilling. And it's, to me, I feel like this was a missed opportunity. Like I feel like some of the melodies could have been stronger on this record. And it was shocking to me because you have Desmond Child and you have the guys in Scorps, and I don't know. I think they got
and James Michaels, who, might I add, that same year was working with Nikki Sixx and DJ Espa for 6 a.m. And that's another great record too. I like that one.
Right,
too.
But like I almost felt like this album feels to me like almost too many cooks are in the pot, and like somehow the Scorpions themselves got lost. You know what I mean? The Scorpions vibe. Maybe I would feel differently about it if it was a totally new group. And, you know, I might, you know, or maybe it was a Klaus Menner solo record. Maybe I would have thought about it or felt differently about it. So I'll give you that. But I felt like as the Scorpions, something was like not right.
Yeah, especially when you got people like, say, Billy Corgan. You got John Five, who at the time was with Rob Zombie at the time. You know, like you said, Desmond Child on here, James Michael, who would be the frontman for 6 a.m. And, you know, and he's also worked with Meatloaf and stuff like that. But like I said, I grew up on that one, that being my first. So yeah, I can see what you're saying and all that stuff, but I grew up with it. And I still, to this day, love the album.
That's awesome, man. I love that.
That's all that matters, is if you like it.
Yeah.
And so now that you and Jamie are like fans of the record,
I
I
like
after this, I'm gonna go try to give it like a good like listen for a few days.
It's a grower. Like again, like if someone were to just skip through and like, okay, I'm looking for the big rocker bangers. I think there's sort of like one rock, like heavy track that Ryan was saying, but the rest of it is kind of like mid pace, kind of slower, kind of stuff.
Yeah,
But
like there's songs like I could think the heaviest ones that I remember out the top one, the first half of the title track, hour one. What would there be? You're Loving Me to Death is kind of a heavy one, 3, 2, 1. And then you got songs like say The Future Never Dies, Love Will Keep Us Alive, or and now We Will Rise Again is also another pretty damn heavy song on there.
David is having none of that.
I think Hour One to me seems like they were just trying too hard to be relevant, and they brought in all these outside guys, and they're like, okay, they overthought it too much. Like, what can we do to sound relevant? We're old. We're an old band.
Yeah, sound like Painkiller, just
Yeah,
older.
We're an older band. We got to bring in this fresh blood, and we got to do these co-writes and stuff. And a lot of bands do this. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, I guess it worked out in Aerosmith's case with Pump and Permanent Vacation. They brought in all these outside guys, and they had this big arena.
Priest was another one because this is similar to almost something like Painkiller. They bring in freaking Scott Travis, and they made that holy freaking shit.
Yeah,
Painkiller.
But Painkiller is different in that, to David's point, because Painkiller, the writing was still the original Priest. The two things about Painkiller are different. Are Scott Travis, obviously, in the approach, but the writers were still within Priest, and they also had a great producer in Chris Tsangarides. So they went from Tom Alam to that. So it kind of spiced up the sound, but they weren't, and I'm not trying to cut you off, Dave. I'm sorry, David. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
But I feel like there's a big difference there, because I think that they were just like, let's try harder. And after the last couple of not good records, let's try to get back to what Priest is. And it just like, to me, Painkiller is Priest on steroids, and like classic Priest on roids. It's not like Nostradamus, where I'm trying to do this really heavy record where you have to think, and it's going to be dark and weird, and no one will get it but us. And it's like, you're right. You know what I mean? You kind of went too far off that way. I love records like Skunkworks that was mentioned. I love that Jamie mentioned that record, that are being adventurous and trying something different. But in the case of Skunkworks, it was, it's Bruce writing with younger people, but they weren't named people. He was the name. In this case, like what David's saying, is like you're getting all these like big guys to try to put together a cool record, and it's like the Scorpions to me, like I said, are lost in it a bit.
Yeah, I think they did the best when they just try to be true to themselves, try to be true to their sound. And their sound is just a hard rock sound with gorgeous melodies from vocals, gorgeous background harmonies, and hooks, simple hooks, not anything complicated, and doesn't have to be a concept record. I mean, I guess you can consider this album maybe their version of The Elder, but the only difference is I love The Elder. I love The Elder.
Now I do too, David. I agree.
But I like the first song, Humanity, Hour One. I liked Hour One, and I think pretty much I listened to it maybe a few times, and I just really couldn't get into it. But I do like when bands try different things, and Celtic Frost would be, I think, the king of this experimental, kind of rock and metal.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Some bands just really shouldn't kind of stray too far from their sound. Some bands know what they can do and what they can't do. And I'm looking at you, AC/DC. You always write the same album every time, which is great. And some bands just go for stuff that they just doesn't sound good, doesn't sound authentic. When it doesn't sound authentic, that's when I'm not really into it.
Yeah.
Well, to carry off what you were saying about how you want just Scorpions to be that kind of simple hooks and the fun rock band is, well, they did that on some of the newer albums, and people still trash those newer albums anyway. So
yeah,
like the newer albums.
Sting of the Tail,
because I think Sting of the Tail and Return to Forever are those kind of what you're saying, what you're looking for, but then people go online and people trash those albums.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's a no-win situation. When they try to do something different, it sucks. When they try to do the simple rock hook songs, the fun rock hook songs, people say it sucks anyway. So can
I
you
felt-
win either way?
I hear what you're saying too, Jamie. I actually am raising this album. I know it's not it's reflecting, but Unbreakable to me was of the newer Scorpions to me the most successful in terms of songs and production, where it sounded like they were doing something a little bit different, but it still had the hooks and classic Scorpion sound. I don't know how other people feel, and hopefully I didn't take anyone's number one. This was like an honorable mention, but to your point, Jamie, I feel like this was a return to form, and I liked it a lot. And I agree. I always felt that people should listen to this album more because there were a lot of great songs, and I felt like they were being authentic in themselves, but also doing something a little different. But I really like this record. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I always thought this was of the newish, it's not even new anymore, but the last wave of Scorpion stuff. Although like I said, I can't wait to hear the new record that hopefully I get tomorrow, because I'm excited about it. But so far of what I've heard, this was my favorite of the later Scorpions records, even though it's a bit older at this point.
Yeah, it's almost 20 years old.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I like the last two albums, and I'm always online trying to pump these albums up because just the people just continue reverting the same old 80s, the 70s, 80s albums. I'm like, man, the newer Scorpions is good too. I don't know what you really want from them, but yeah, no, like I like Return to Forever and Sting in the Tail. So, and they kind of have those kind of simple, catchy songs and fun rock songs, and if that's what David's looking for. But then some people might say, oh, they suck. Well, it's like a no-win situation because they're giving you what you want, or so I think. I don't know, but I try to pump those albums up because I think they're fine.
I like them better than I like Hour One.
Right? Yeah. And they're definitely way more upbeat and fun, and they have those catchy choruses and things like that. But yeah, I did my number two's Blackout, so we'll jump over to Dave for his number one.
Right on. All right. So that's my number one album right there.
Trance.
Oh,
Okay. So
wow.
yeah, In Trance. Yeah, this album here to me, this is, I mean, all 70s Scorps are great. The first two albums, they were good, but they're more that that krautrock psychedelic kind of sound, right? This album here, I found this is where they kind of broke the mold with this one, and this is where they started to develop that Scorpion sound, right? That we all know. Heavy album for the 70s, right? It's great album.
Great album, and great album cover too, right?
Yeah.
I want to ask you, Dave, is your record, because I'm noticing, I'm sorry, I'm like geeking out and doing vinyl geek out. Yours is American press, because I see that under the RCA logo, you have a little more of you have a Columbia or some sort of other logo underneath.
No, it's Canadian press.
Oh, it's
Like a Maple Leaf.
That's interesting. This is a British press, and it doesn't have that. It's a little thinner. So yeah, very cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh wow, can you turn that over? Wow. So the back of mine, you have like is that Fly to the Rainbow in small?
Yep.
Oh, I see what you're looking at.
That's
Yes,
interesting.
It's a Fly to the Rainbow advertisement.
Yeah, that's super cool. Like mine doesn't have that at all. That's really cool. Yeah, mine's just black in there. Wow, look at that. Super cool.
Yeah, my number one choice right there. That will always be my favorite Scorps right there. So yeah.
That is nowhere in my top even 8.
Oh really?
You don't like Uli?
Not a bit. That album, wasn't a whole lot that caught me.
Yeah.
I could probably pick out like 4, songs I liked from the album, but nothing like.
You don't like Dark Lady?
I was gonna say Dark Lady or Robot Man.
Oh my God! Doesn't Uli sing on that one?
Not one of my more favorites, that's for sure. But yeah, that was definitely a surprise. I thought if anything I thought you were gonna pull out like Love Drive or something like that. But I was like, oh, gee.
It's an honorable mention.
Great choice.
Yeah, that was definitely a surprise. I guess that would be probably something I didn't expect by doing the show. That it kind of would be so varied actually in some of the picks. Actually, all the picks have been quite varied other than Blackout, but yeah, other than that, it's actually been quite varied. It was just kind of surprising, yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah, it was definitely a surprise, cool surprise, or you know, even if anyone does watch in the future, it's actually kind of I think it's pretty entertaining already, just to see all the
Diversity
various.
is a spice of life.
Right, yeah, and yeah, you throw in a Pure Instinct, so we got some different stuff going on here. I mean, and actually, when we were on our Humanity Hour talk, I was going to say that album seems like it's so polarizing that we ended up talking about Humanity Hour more, time wise, more than we did Blackout. So I'll leave you with that.
Yeah.
So Peter, if you want to go up next there.
So you named my number one. So
Oh yeah, there we go. Awesome.
My favorite,
Alright.
both album covers here.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
And the not
I
band.
still prefer the sticky
Yeah,
gum,
of
or
course, the
whatever that's supposed to be.
Hypnosis, yeah, for sure. So so I absolutely like I was a Scorpions fan, obviously, but I caught on to them later, like most Americans, right? And so I, was going back and slowly picking up records. I was bouncing around and I started picking up even some Uli John Roth records. So kind of like I saw on Dave's wall, like AC/DC, like I bought Back in Black was one of I think my first AC/DC record. And I started just buying anything that said AC/DC on it. I did the same thing with the Scorpions, so I wasn't quite going in order. And somehow this album was like my last record. And I was like, I'm a huge UFO fan, and I had no idea that Michael Schenker was all over this record. And so, much to my surprise, imagine putting this on and I heard Loving You Sunday Morning, and I was like, oh my God. And I just like fell in love. So I always call this like the Scorpions kind of almost UFO record, because obviously Michael's playing and the writing and just the time it came out. But I love this record. I think it's just like Another Piece of Meat is great.
I was going to say that next to
yeah, Coast to Coast. I mean, this record is just like tremendous. Holiday ends the record, Love Drive. I mean, literally like it's totally got that Strangers in the Night feel, right? And when you think about how awesome the Scorpions were, right? And where they were coming off of, because they were coming off of like Tokyo Tapes and all this stuff, and they were, like hot sounding, right? And then you have Michael Schenker, who's floating before he starts MSG, and he's coming out of UFO's most successful period, really, in a lot of ways, right? From Strangers in the Night, and his playing is just out of this world. And having them both together on a record, just this record explodes to me. I love this album. It's kind of one of those records that like whenever I listen to, I'm like home. I feel like this is kind of like what really great hard rock / poppy or metal kind of the midpoint is. I always like hold up this record. Every song is great. Klaus is singing so well. To David's point, I felt like Klaus's harmonies on this record, the melodies on the album, the lyrics are really good. Like some of them are obvious, but really well written. It just feels like this album feels like very like when a group is really a great group is really happening, and the songs are just flowing out of them. It feels really natural. They don't feel like, unlike what we were talking about in Humanity One, this record to me feels real at ease. It feels very comfortable, and they're on fire. They're writing great songs. There's a great interplay. We didn't really talk a lot about the rhythm section, but Herman Rarebell on this record, man, I mean, just really, really terrific. This was like this great stuff. And I know Matthias came somewhere in the middle of this recording process and plays on some of it. It's really kind of a Rudy and Michael record driven. Even the songs that Michael doesn't play on, there's still that kind of energy and vibe, in terms of songwriting here. So, I mean, like this to me is the top of the top. And it was actually not really hard for me, like I said, to pick my number one. All the rest became difficult. And my friends used to argue with me and say, no, man, there's an extra album you don't have, because this record was the band record. And they'd say, no, there's this record, just a Scorpion on it. So like an idiot, when I was like 10 years old, I was like, what are you talking about? And they took me to the record store and like, yeah, this record. I'm like, you guys are idiots. This is the same record as this one. But it's just, They couldn't, they were like, what? And they freaked out when they saw the album cover, obviously, which I love. But yeah, this is the American one, which has kind of the obligatory band shot in the back. Yeah, and I also noticed, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, but there is also a sonic difference between the two editions slightly. They actually, in this pressing, it was said that the record was a bit too hot. RCA felt that the record was a little loud. So when they mastered and when they put this out again, they toned it down because they were afraid that it was too bright for a commercial US radio. So I hear a slight difference. I don't notice it as much as other people do, but I've A/B'd them, and I noticed it a little bit on certain tracks. But some audiophile folks really claim that you shouldn't listen to this version at all. They should only listen to this. Although I don't know on CD if it's much of a difference because I have the remasters. So those of you that just have the remasters, we should all check them out. But that's what I've heard. Yeah, exactly. I think that I don't know, maybe it's not so telling on the CD version.
Honestly, I haven't listened to these in so long. I would love to do a side-by-side comparison now that you're talking about it.
Yeah, so it makes sense because, obviously everything was about radio. So, and the Scorpions were like a really popular live touring band opening for all the greats all over the US and all over, Western Europe, but they hadn't quite become, other than in Germany and in Japan and certain territories, they still weren't they weren't quite a headliner. And this record to me is like the step in that direction. Like I always wondered, as much as I love Blackout, I wonder like, why wasn't this quite as big? And maybe I would point right to the album cover. I think that if this had, and not necessarily like a really dull album cover like this, like it's cool, but it doesn't really say anything. I always wonder if they had a cooler, I shouldn't say cooler because I love this album cover, but maybe one that wasn't so controversial. I always felt that this might have hit as big, because despite it went gold very slowly. It was like a slow build, and a lot of record chains were not carrying this album, which scared the record label. So I always wondered if they had like, the kind of the Blackout album cover, but something that was crazy but still kind of cool. Maybe this would have been their breakthrough earlier. I don't know, but definitely Love Drive to me is like the quintessential perfect Scorpions record, great sound, and you have the greatness of Michael Schenker on it, which he puts his like magic fairy dust and he disappears again, and now he just talks crap about his brother, unfortunately, all the time. So
yeah.
I know for me that when I first started getting into Scorpions, however long it was, but I know that album at first it wasn't too hot for me, but then I kind of revisited it a few times. And then it finally started catching on. So that's one of those albums for me that I kind of had to listen to it, 2, 3, 4 times to really kind of get in tune with what's going on with that. But yeah, in general, that album is very consistent, like all the way through. I pretty well like all those tracks. Yeah, cool stuff. I had to assume Love Drive was going to show up because I knew that was a pretty consistent album. So I was hoping that was going to show up on someone's list, although it didn't quite crack mine, although I did consider it. Like, any of those, top 8, even top, 6, 8 Scorpion albums could have made my top 3. Like, they're all interchangeable for me. Like, I'm not super set on my top 3. Like, they're all very interchangeable. I don't know how other guys kind of feel about that. But yeah, I think a lot of them would be kind of interchangeable, and Love Drive would definitely be, at any given day, if I do this a year later, that could crack my top 3, and maybe a week later it doesn't. So it's all interchangeable for me. So I'm kind of nervous to ask what David's number 1 is. He might have a surprise up his sleeve here.
I don't know how much of a surprise is going to be, but it's definitely not an 80s album because
Hammer.
As much as I love the 80s stuff and the big arena rock sound, I'm more of a fan of very melodic and guitar, and I'm a huge Hendrix guy. Like, I love Hendrix. So anybody that has any kind of relationship with Hendrix, sound wise or playing wise, I think this guy Uli even shared the same girlfriend. I think Monica Danneman was Hendrix's girlfriend, and then he became Uli's girlfriend.
Wife, right? Isn't it his wife?
Yeah, so that's, that's kind of a weird connection. But my favorite Scorpions album, and the one I think is the best, is Virgin Killer.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a good
and
album.
the reason why is I just point to the songs and I point to the guitar virtuosity of Uli and his interplay with Rudy. I'm not putting Rudy down at all. I think he's a great guitarist, but Uli John Roth is a virtuoso who brings songwriting to a new level. And yeah, I mean, it's just an awesome. I mean, Pictured Life, Catch Your Train, and one of my favorite all-time songs is Catch Your Train. That's one of my favorite Scorpion songs of all time. It's so powerful, and I think Klaus's vocals are, again, they're on point on this album. They're very powerful. He's not screaming. He doesn't scream, but his vocals are just very powerful on this album, and it always catches my ear. And then you have on the back half of the album, you have a lot of the slower, more power ballady stuff, where he really shows his range and how dynamic his voice can be. And then you've got Uli singing on Hellcat and stuff like that. So it kind of there's a weird dynamic to this album that makes it so glorious. And it's got that nuanced German just feel to it. Very European, very guitar heavy. I mean, I can totally understand why it didn't hit in the U.S. until they got Matthias in there and the big arena rock sound. But this to me is a 10 out of 10. Just virtuoso playing and songwriting, and that's why I love it so much.
Polar Night's a cool song.
Polar Nights is good. I mean, the title track is heavy metal. If the Scorpions ever did heavy metal, which they're not really a heavy metal band, they're a hard rock band, the song Virgin Killer is a true heavy metal track.
Indeed.
I mean, it's just awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I noticed with you two having the vinyl there, the Best Buy stickers in different locations. Yours is in the right corner. His is right in the middle there.
Yeah, Dave, I was going to ask you if you can hold up yours a little closer. So, wow. And yours is in white. And is that a Canadian press, Dave?
It is, yeah.
Oh, man, I'm jealous. So, yeah, this is a U.S. pressing. And so it's part of the Best Buy series, but in orange and underneath. And it was great. And Best Buy series were terrific because you could get a bunch of records really cheap back in the day.
Nice.
I have that on vinyl too, but I just pull my CDs, and I have a few different CD versions. This is actually just acquired maybe a few months ago. I think it's an older. This might be an 80s press.
That's total 80s press. It's a German press with the LC. It's a German 80s press, I think.
Yeah, made in Germany. Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm. And so I when I go to the used record stores and stuff, and I see these things, I instantly know, just from looking at the spine, that it's an older pressing. So I always scoop these up, even though I might have 4 or 5 of them. I always scoop them up. I think I paid $3 for this.
Yeah. Those are, and it's funny if fans, I don't know any of you guys, if how many of you guys are Kiss fans, but if you find any of I'm a huge fan. So if you find any of those, David, like the 80s Kiss CDs, Polygram was being really cheap, and they kind of just wanted to get them out. And so the sound quality isn't terrific, but they're actually worth a lot of money for some reason.
Wow.
Because they're yeah.
Oh, that's the alternate cover for Creatures.
Yeah, how dare they remix that record? But
you have that one, Pete?
What?
Do you have that version?
Yeah, I have it on vinyl too.
I have, if I can pull it out. Where is it? This is it.
Yeah, I have multiple.
I have Animal Lies on vinyl.
Love that.
Yeah, this is Polygram too. If you can see, it's right there.
I believe that's my second favorite Kiss album, maybe even first. It's right up there.
Oh yeah, that's when they were. When was this? Was this between? That looked like it was after Asylum.
No, it's actually after Animalize. So.
Oh really? Wow.
The label made a really ridiculous decision and decided, because Kiss had 2 platinum albums back to back, they decided to reissue Creatures because Creatures is such a great record, and they plastered, like, Bruce Kulick didn't even play.
I would love to see some of those albums because they have some of the bands. I always looked up to see what they would have looked like with the makeup,
Well, I don't want to go into maybe Jamie, we could call this crew and we could do a Kiss one next.
Yeah.
You want to polarize people, you can polarize people, but yeah. I loved your David, I loved your Scorpions pick of Virgin.
Yeah, that was one of those that had like the kit, what they would have looked like with the makeup, right. David. Like Paul had the star, Demon with Gene with the demon, and then I think what was Eric Carr, the Fox, I believe.
Love that album, David.
Yeah, it was Fox.
Yep. So do I, David.
Vinny was the Alk Warrior.
Jamie's probably yelling at us because he's like, "Don't turn this into a Kiss one."
No, I was gonna say, I hate to break it to you, but we already did a Kiss show.
Oh,
yeah,
do another one.
Big Dogs is on it, but
we can do another one because there's you can
do
talk,
another one. I want to be
about
in
Kiss.
Yeah,
let's do a real one.
Yeah, and then David, Big Dog can redeem his pick about having, I think, Elder in his top 3.
I might back David. I might back David, although on a bad.
That's a glorious album. I don't know why it gets so maligned.
It is.
Most of my stuff would be 80s stuff. There might be 170s, but they're mostly 80s stuff from Kiss.
We could do, what could be fun is you could do, since you did I assume you did an overall 80s Kiss, you could do like rather overall Kiss. You could do a 70s Kiss, an 80s Kiss, and then a
90s and 2000 on 90s and onwards Kiss.
Yeah,
that would be something.
Yeah, best picks from each decade. It'd be funny.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I want to hear Ryan's number 1 Scorpions record because now, like, he threw out the big.
I will not waste any time. My number 1 is Blackout.
Okay, you've come to your senses.
I mean, this would be all because I think it was my friend Brody. He ain't around anymore, but he told me we got to listen to this. It was like I think we were doing like a watch together or something of this, and just listening to this album all the way through. I'm like, holy shit, I've been sleeping on this album. Fuck. So yeah, Blackout, number 1. I'm not wasting time with that.
All right. It's back
good
on
album.
Great album.
Good album.
We're not gonna have more Blackout talk. Oh darn! Because this is probably going to be the big shocker. This album has not even got picked once. It got brought up at the beginning of the show. You guys were trash talking it, and I was like,
"What album? Wait, what album?
No.
What album? I did not hear. What's the album?"
David and Peter were kind of trash. I don't know if they were trash talking it, but they were saying, it's not very good. And I'm just like, what? Damn, it's good. And I was like, I was trying not to say anything because I didn't want to give it away, but.
Nostradamus?
Was it my number 2?
Nostradamus.
It better not be my number. It better not be my number 2. If it's my number 2,
but I do think Nostradamus is good. The only thing that bogs Nostradamus down is all the pre-intro tracks. If they were to take all those pre-intro tracks, there's some good stuff on there.
Or have them just combine them with the songs. That would have been.
You're a forgiving man, Jamie.
We'll save that for a Judas Priest show. I can start getting into that for that. But I'm dead serious. I really love this album. We got Face the Heat here.
Face the Heat. Oh, nice. You got the version my stepdad's got.
I'm not sure why some people on the panel don't like it, but
I like it.
I don't hate.
Album.
No, I don't hate Face the Heat. I think that there's some things I'm not crazy about. I don't hate it.
Like as soon as Alien Nation comes on, oh my god, I just turn the volume up. Just turn the volume up. Just
but then you turn it down when Taxman comes on.
Love that track, man. But yeah, No Pain, No Gain, Unholy Alliance. Even actually the slower song, Woman's cool, and Taxman Woman, I love that track. And Ship of Fools, man, I just mentioned I mentioned most of the album right there. So I love this album. I really do. I have no shame in picking this as my number 1. But yeah, Alien Nation, No Pain, No Gain, Unholy
That beats
Alliance.
Blackout?
Huh?
That beats Blackout for you?
What, my number 1?
Yeah,
my number 1 was Blackout.
Yeah. I love this album. This is super fun. I don't know why you singled out Taxman Woman because I love that track. That's probably one of my most played Scorpion tracks of all time.
And you trashed my #1 pick of In Trance to that.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not insulting your intelligence with Blackout. Come on, at the very least.
Wow. Now I have to say, I am totally speechless. I can't believe, yeah. Totally.
Mind blown.
I'm totally.
And then you also
It can't be that bad.
Yeah, y'all say that. It can't be that as bad as say Humanity Hour 1.
I thought you were gonna pull out the first album from '72.
Right. I
Oh,
thought
Lonesome Crow.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna do Lonesome Crow or something. Or
Yeah, no, I love this album. It's got that huge '80s production, great sound, fun songs, and yeah, Taxman One. I love that track.
Good album.
That's really cool. I've never seen that. Woo. Nice.
Yeah, I don't know.
Those are from those are like mid '70s reissues.
Oh yeah, by the way, if you can see, this is on Polygram too.
Yeah, red vinyl.
That's awesome, Dave. I was just going to ask you if that one was red vinyl. Mine is not. You know what's
mine's
funny,
red vinyl.
You know what's funny, Dave? Mine is actually the Canadian press. I don't know how I got the Canadian press here, and it's on Bomb.
Yep, mine's a Canadian press.
Yeah, mine's a Canadian press too, on Bomb.
On Bomb, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Super awesome.
But Dave Witherall, well, you own it on vinyl, so you must like it a little bit, or you just buy it just because, or?
Oh no, I like Face the Heat. It's a great album.
Oh yeah, it is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great, and I almost feel like maybe because it's '93, people had, a lot of like the old school '80s guys, they gave up on music or whatever, just in general, or all new music sucks. So I don't know if that has a part to do with it because it's 1993, but if this had came out in like '88 or something.
Yeah,
it would be viewed differently. I don't know, but it's got that kind of.
I think what Dave said earlier. What Dave said earlier, the Crazy World had the '80s sound, but that album Face the Heat had a '90s sound. It was just totally different. They're polar opposites, even though it's the same band and everything, but the sound and the vibe is completely different. I think that Face the Heat record is so dark, whereas Crazy World is such a light and airy vibe to it. They went really dark.
Like the guitar, some of the riffs are kind of bluesy, like it's kind of bluesy, and I love that kind of bluesy kind of stuff. So, and then he's what's that? I think it's on Taxman Woman. He's doing that vocal guitar thing. What's that thing called? I forget.
Talk box.
The rock talk box. I love that stuff too. So yeah, I love this. Fun album, good stuff, and yeah.
I gotta go back and listen to it. I haven't heard it in like probably 15 years.
Yeah, I have to listen to that record again. But I remember I loved the opening track and Alienation, and then the rest I remember going, what happened? You know what I mean? Like, and it was weird because I was actually excited about that record because Kiss had released Revenge the year before, and it was so awesome. So I was thinking, oh great, well maybe a lot of the old cats are going to be like, listen, when you're a group like, and I remember AC/DC had done Razor's Edge before.
Yeah, Razor's Edge. Yeah,
Razor's Edge. Yeah.
You had Razor's Edge. You had Revenge, and I'm thinking, oh great, so another group is gonna come out, with a Scorpions are gonna come back, and I heard Alienation. Well, that's a great song. I don't know. I think maybe my expectations were a bit too high.
Yeah, and you also to throw in Painkiller from Judas Priest in '90.
Right. No, absolutely. Well stated, for sure, Ryan. So I think that I just felt like it just didn't measure up to all those like classic groups kind of putting out really great records. It felt a little bit whatever, but I gotta listen to it again.
I'd say like you guys on the bottom of my screen anyway, Peter and David. I think if David was saying that he hasn't played this in probably 15 years, I think when you guys do kind of revisit this album, you guys are going to be surprised. It's much better than you were probably thinking or last time you listened to it. But there's some big open kind of rock songs on here. But yeah, when he was talking there, I was just kind of humming to myself on Holy Alliance. The song on Holy Lines, but yeah, there's some good stuff on there. I think you guys would be surprised if you revisit it.
In Trance, Jamie. In Trance.
That's a good album. That's a good album.
I'm saying revisit Face the Heat. He's saying revisit In Trance, and
Jamie, can I throw in something? I'm waiting since we talked about Humanity Hour 1 for a while. I figure I might as well just just put it all out there. I was gonna say the album that most Scorpions fans pretty much consider the worst record ever, which is this record, Eye to Eye. Yeah. A lot of people kind of forget that it exists. I actually don't think this is the worst record. I think that they kind of put out other ones that were a little weaker, but it's an ultra pop, like them trying to be kind of like late 90s pop. And so there's a lot, I can understand why people don't dig it at all. I always wondered also, and I don't know, if they had like almost renamed the group or done like a side project and they had just, because it's essentially at this point, the Scorpions are really Klaus, Rudy, and Matthias, and then they had a couple other guys playing in the group. I always wondered if this was kind of like if they didn't call it Scorpions and they called it something else, just like a fun other project. I think that people would have been much more open and receptive to it because they would have been like, oh cool, this is a cool side project. But I talk about this only because I actually think one of the best ballads they ever wrote and sang is on this, and that's 10 Light Years Away. That is a hit song and it's a great ballad. If you listen to just that track, I don't know, some of you might not dig the pop stuff. Like I said, I was working a record store at the time and I actually didn't hate this record. I thought it was okay, but it wasn't really like Scorpions to me. But the song 10 Light Years Away is a fantastic, beautifully sung, like just very poppy ballad that to me is one of their best ballads ever. It's a great, great song, great guitar work. They're actually playing acoustics pretty much throughout the whole song. And but the lyric is great. And Klaus is not singing really in your face. It's a really quiet vocal and just really cool. And there's beautiful harmonies. We were talking about, I think David was mentioning, Klaus's harmonies being so great. On that song, the harmonies are incredible. And his singing is really great. He kind of is chill throughout the whole song. At the end, he just really pins and you're reminded of like, wow, Klaus Meine is a killer singer. And it's funny because when I used to play it in the store, I would always play, I went through a phase where I was opening the store and playing that song. And all these people bought the CD for that song because they were like, oh, I don't really know the Scorpions, or oh, I remember Scorpions way back when. I was like, yeah, it's a great song. So, and those of you that a Weird Twist is this like kind of pop record. There are a couple of other good things on it, but it's worth to me the price of admission just for that song. That's the song I'll defend anytime. If you guys
saw them on this tour,
were they good?
I loved them. I saw them. It was a double bill. I think they were doing a double bill with Motley Crue, and Scorpions went on first. This was about 90. I think it was 99 maybe.
Yeah, 99.
And they were touring with Motley Crue, and they blew Motley Crue off the stage. Motley Crue was terrible.
I saw Crue the year before that was at Generation. So Crue was on Generation Swine then, right? Was it around
something like that? Probably.
Rejoined, yeah. And I saw them, and Cheap Trick opened up for them. And Cheap Trick had put out a great record in '97, a self-titled record, Total Return to Form, great album on a small label. Same thing, like you said, Scorpions went on first. Cheap Trick obviously went on first. And they went on for 50 minutes and just killed, because they're Cheap Trick and they were awesome. And Motley Crue went on and they were really terrible. Like vocally especially was really atrocious.
All you could hear was this distorted guitar sound and just Tommy's kick drum. That's all you heard. You didn't hear the song. All you heard was this distorted guitar, mixed guitar, which just really, it was really high in the mix, and all you heard was this constant pounding from Tommy's drums. It wasn't very musical to me, and of course the vocals just weren't there. I was like, what did I pay all this money for?
Yeah. Wait, what year was this?
99.
For this
wow!
album.
So this would have been this would have been right around. They were about to do the new tattoo, and then they got Brandy.
New tattoo a little further. That was on Generation Swine.
That piece of crap.
I remember the Scorpions went on and people were still sitting because they were like, quote unquote, the opening band. There was no real opening band. People were sitting and like there was people who were getting upset. They're like, come on, stand up. This is the Scorpions. Show some respect. And I just remember it vividly. And I'm like, how could you be sitting for this? This is awesome. I mean, they were putting on a good show. The songs were like perfect, and their playing was really good, and had the crowd engaged from
Did
the
they
people
do
that weren't sitting.
Did they do anything from this record? I'm
They
curious.
played 3 songs that I remember. They played Mysterious, they played
Yeah.
To Be Number One, and then they played I think Mind Like a Tree.
Right. To Be
Been
Number
waiting-
One is
I'm waiting
probably
to mention that track. Yeah, I was gonna say there's a couple key tracks on for me for that album. There's that tree. You lost track of the mind like a tree.
Yeah.
And I believe it's the very last song, Aaliyah.
That's the next to last song.
Aaliyah. That's a good track too.
Wow, I'm hearing love for Eye to Eye. You know,
Yeah, actually, this album grew on me.
Yep, it's definitely one of those albums that if you leave on, the other thing is, and I don't know how you guys would feel about this record, but I look at it compared to in the Scorpions catalog. If you leave this and you call this just like we were talking about Kisses the Elder, like that's the concept record. I look at Eye to Eye like I listen to Kisses Unmasked, which is it's a power pop record, and I love it. It's Kiss doing power pop. And like when I listen to the Scorpions record, I listen to this as them trying to do like kind of their take on kind of like hard rock, but more hard rock through power pop.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
It's
my take on this
pop record.
I think that they tried to add some Kraftwerk elements to it. There was some like electronica in here.
Yeah, live electronic effects.
And then to my ears, 20 plus years ago, I wasn't into Kraftwerk, but I am into them now. So I understand and I appreciate all that. But 20 years ago, I was like, what the heck are they trying to pull here? Like with they weren't using acoustic drums on some of the tracks, and it was some electronic stuff.
Yeah. Well, To Be Number One was also, I remember my first time I was in Germany, and I was doing some vocals for Sony Germany on some projects, and they were showing that video that really, if you guys want to laugh, that video for To Be Number One is pretty ridiculous. But they were showing it was charting along with it was so funny. It was like Britney Spears and whatever else. And then there was like Scorpions To Be Number One. I remember I saw that and I was like, what? And I was like, there must be a video. I'm in Germany. I'm not in the US. Because in the US, this album like sunk without a trace, right? And I remember seeing the video and going, oh my God, it's the Scorpions doing their version of pop. But of course, there's Scorpions. And the thing that I really respected, and I still respect them when we were talking about Humanity Hour One, and that they're not afraid, and any good band that has longevity does this, they're not afraid of trying things, and sometimes they're super successful. And sometimes in a career, you try stuff and it doesn't work. But I really like that they gave it their all. And when you see that, right, exactly, yeah, right, exactly, like, oh, Metallica did this, so well, we're gonna do our version of this, whatever. But I always respect guys, and they're such good musicians that they come off and they're like, oh, that was a record, we're gonna stand by. And it's cool to hear that they actually played songs from that record live, because they should. I think if it's a new record, you play songs off the new record. So so I always thought that was cool. And they were kind of like that from the very get, because when they came out of the gate, there were more elements of like krautrock, and there's all sorts of stuff going on those first 2 Scorpions records, and then they kind of developed their own sound. So I always thought it was cool, because this record, as poppy as it is, when I hear Klaus's voice and I hear a lot of the melodies, it's like, oh, it sounds like the Scorpions just doing a pop record.
Yeah, it's a grower. That definitely is a grower on me. I appreciate it now, 20 years later, but 20 years ago, I was probably like, this doesn't do it for me.
Exactly.
In that sense, it could be similar to Humanity Hour, but I dig Humanity Hour more than Eye to Eye.
It's got some good tracks on it.
But unless anyone's got any other honorable mentions, I always try to pump up Return to Forever. I think this album's great. I love this album.
I gotta listen to it.
I wish more people gave it a chance, more respect.
I gotta listen to that.
But this is super fun, and he has some tongue twisting kind of stuff going on there with like we built this house, and the scratch, that's the one he's kind of doing this tongue twisting kind of melodies and verses, right? But I think it's fun album. It's great. Well, to this date, it's the newest Scorpion albums until tomorrow. But it's kind of ironic that we are doing a Scorpion show the day before the release. I hadn't even realized it was getting released tomorrow, actually. So that'd be kind of a cool little surprise.
No, I've got an honorable mention that no one probably even has or maybe even remembers. But I remember when they did the MTV Unplugged, the Scorpions kind of did like their version of it, and they had this album released.
Oh, cool.
I
MTV
thought
Unplugged.
I thought that they were so powerful live and unplugged. I mean, because you heard the essence of how great of a musicians that they all were. I mean, you heard Klaus without any, big distorted background, and he was, there was no production on his voice. I mean, he is an awesome singer, and this record, this album, live album, proved it to me. And I think this one has a DVD too, so I would have to go back. This one's a sealed copy, but I would have to go back and watch it. But they're just, some bands, they hide behind distortion or they hide behind production. I think the Scorpions are true musicians, and that's why I'm so impressed with them, and they have so much respect for me because I play guitar, and I couldn't reproduce anything good like that, like they do live. I mean, no way. Awesome.
I have an honorable mention.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my favorite albums from the 80s. I'm surprised it never actually got mentioned. That one right there.
Right, yeah.
Savage Amusement, yeah.
I just realized that album didn't get shown. Yeah, right. Good call.
Yeah, I think Rhythm of Love is on that album. So
yeah,
I am surprised it never got
Even,
mentioned. Yeah,
Passion Rules the Game on that one too.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that album. That's another one for me that actually on any given day could be in a top 3 as well.
Oh man, some great tracks on this album.
Yeah, there's some.
You know what I always felt about this record, guys? I always felt this record to me, I don't know what it was about this record because it's produced by Dieter Dierks and everything else. There was something about this record that felt really stiff.
Yeah, same with this. He produced this too.
No, Dieter Dierks produced all the classic, like all the big records. And
yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. Yeah, like this.
Savage Amusement for me, I don't know. There's something about that record that is really weird to me. Like
forced.
Yes, it felt like they were a little tired. I'm sure the record label was like, hey, your last 2 albums are multi-platinum. Even the live record we put out at that point, right, was that Worldwide Live, right? That sold a whole bunch. And that's when they reissued Big City Nights, right?
Yeah.
And they put this out and they were like, oh, you gotta, like go into the studio. And I felt like this album to me always could have used like, I don't know, 4 to 6 months off for the band and let them kind of recharge and write. There's something about this where like there are parts of songs I like and nothing's bad about it, but there's something that's like missing to me. I think Crazy World was much better than this record, but this record felt a little tired and just kind of like, I don't know, I guess they had put out so many great records in a row by that point. I mean, there were 4 or 5 killer records in a row. And there's something about this album that always felt like just the production's a little weird and blocky, and the band felt, it just feels a little bit like, I don't know, it just feels something about it doesn't resonate with me. I've tried, and I tried really hard because as the Scorpions fan as a kid, I was like, I want to like everything that this band did. And, and I listen to this record a lot, and it never held me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. Every Minute, Every Day. I love that track. Check that track out again. You gotta play that one.
I love Don't Stop at the Top. I love that song. Children of Bodom covered that song.
Yes, yeah, I remember that.
And oh my God, they did such a good job on that song.
Yeah. To me, I don't know, you guys may disagree or agree, I don't know. To me, I always found this album was almost like their glam attempt during the 80s.
Poppy. It has like this poppy.
I agree with that.
Yeah. It was their glam metal kind of attempt during that time, right? I like it. Great album. Has some good tracks on it.
Nice.
And we gotta throw in Tokyo Tapes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
David, you just stole my thunder, buddy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool.
Seminal double live album from the 70s.
It is one of the best live albums ever made.
Oh
yeah. If I had to say some honorable mentions, y'all pretty much mentioned a lot of them. Freaking Love Drive, Animal Magnetism, Love at First Sting, Just
Yeah.
those are the ones that would be on there. Maybe I'm trying to remember if there's anything.
I think we've actually almost mentioned and covered almost pretty well every one.
This is the worst one.
Oh, the
Yes.
Come Black album. That was after Sting of the Tail.
I
That's just them re-recording classics, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I like them, and it got me to listen to those songs and listen to the original ones. I love those just as much as I love the originals.
So here's the thing: I'll buy every single album from a band that I like, even when I
Same.
don't like the album. And if I don't like the album, I won't unwrap it, but I'll keep it.
Nice.
So
Yeah,
I probably have 500 CDs that are not even, unsealed.
Yeah.
Fair enough, yeah. But I just listened to some of those, like their re-recording of Rock You Like a Hurricane's great. I love their version of Blackout on that one. Even though I like the classic one, I love the re-recorded version. That one to me, I like the sound. I was like, holy fucking shit, that sounds really freaking
That's my
beefy.
biggest pet peeve is when bands go back and record stuff from 30, 40 years ago and they re-release it. I understand why they do it because of publishing. I understand.
Yeah, and because
they
of that, it got me to listen to the original one. And I love
Yeah.
the original one too.
But I my pet peeve, I hate bands. I wish they would stop doing it. Don't re-record your stuff. I don't want to hear Lightning to the Nations 2022. I want to go back and get the one from the 80s. I mean, come on, please.
Oh, the only difference with Diamond Head when they did that is they eventually on that thing when they did that, they covered a Metallica song on that, which was like, holy shit.
I mean, I love Diamond Head. They're one of my favorite bands in the entire world, but I can't buy a re-recorded album of stuff from 40 years ago. I mean, I'd rather hear new studio tracks that have nothing to do with those. I can't. That's one of my biggest pet peeves.
I can understand that.
You know what the cool option is nowadays, if they did want to do stuff like that, is put it as a bonus CD with the original material.
Well, Kiss did
I
that.
remember.
I've
I've seen. Yeah, I see. It got a Monomar. I didn't.
Yeah.
I had was the 20 a Monomar's 2013 album, and they
Oh, they
came with
did
like
that.
a cover. They had a covers EP, and they had some songs from I think AC/DC, Motorhead, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath. Yeah, I had that version of Sonic Boom when I first got it.
Well, you can only get it at Walmart.
Yeah, I prefer that. Like if bands are going to re-record that, so then when they upload all this stuff to Spotify and YouTube, they get the money back as opposed to the labels from the 80s. So I do understand what David said. He understands of why their bands are doing that nowadays, because to get the publishing and rights back in their hands.
And not to mention trying to get try and attract people, someone like me, to actually listen to their stuff and get a taste of what they were back, see what they did back then, and say, hey, go check out our older stuff, the older versions of these, like Blackout, all, stuff like that,
I think nowadays, like if I had an opinion on it, I think it's a pure money reason, because when they upload it to Spotify and YouTube, it goes back to them as opposed to the old record label. So then, yeah, I think that's all it is about, really, nowadays, anyway.
I mean, I feel bad for the bands that they can't go out and tour, because that was how they made their money. Now they don't make their album. They don't make the money from selling albums anymore. The paradigm has shifted. They make their money from touring and merch. Because when I used to go to shows over 2 years ago, I would buy $100 in merch. I'd buy maybe 2 shirts. I'd buy a keychain or something if they had one. I'd buy something signed if they had something signed. But now, they don't make any money off albums. I mean, who buys albums? People just download everything, except for us collectors.
Well, there's a lot of truth to that. I definitely feel the cool thing is that vinyl is returned with such a vengeance that's helped a lot with younger and older folks, or older folks are replacing their vinyl and gotten back in, and younger folks are really. I think it's saying that, hey, the digital thing is cool. For me, digital stuff is great for convenience. And as a musician, sending tracks to people, especially in the middle of this pandemic, has been vital, for my band and what we do. But nothing replaces the experience of being home, putting something on your turntable, checking out the artwork. So I know that Glenn Hughes, for example, they put out all his 90s through early 2000s records on vinyl. And they never were, and they did a beautiful job with it, and it was cool because, and I, Glenn, when I follow him on social media, he talks about he noticed an uptick in sales and like, people buying and starting to check out his other stuff. So I think that that's another really great for older acts, and for, any act that has some sort of a catalog. That's also a really cool thing. And I've noticed that that's made a difference. And it's been cool for me as a lover of music, like to grab a lot of records that came out in the 90s that weren't pressed to vinyl, or that I was running around trying to get when I was in Europe in the early 90s. All those records are really hard when you have the changeover of metal and to kind of, what we call grunge and like heavier metal stuff. It's been a really cool experience. So it was cool, like, seeing like Face to Heat on vinyl, or something like that. Like all that stuff is really rare. And so it was it's cool. And I hope that bands like the Scorpions, like a lot of these records we're talking about, even something like Eye to Eye, I would go back if they pressed on vinyl, I would buy it. It'd be fun, or buy Unbreakable on vinyl. That would be really neat. And especially because we were talking about all those, like Animal Magnetism and stuff, and some of the other records, some of those, if you have a record that's been really played, you can put it out. If there are B-sides, if there are live versions lying around, you could slap it together, so hopefully we'll see some major, because I don't have the Scorpions reissued any of their stuff on vinyl like that. I don't think so, right?
I
No.
think there were 50th anniversary ones.
Yeah, I just saw this at like a Salvation Army for like maybe a few bucks. I was like, oh shit, hell, fuck yeah, I'll get that.
I think they did, but they weren't pressed in like probably a really large amount.
No.
So I think they're overdue.
Yeah, they definitely, especially with this new record promising to be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to getting on vinyl because I haven't gotten a Scorpions on vinyl since Face to Heat. I think, I think that's my last record. Because nothing, I remember when Unbreakable came out, I liked it. I thought, hey, let me look to see if there's an import version. And there was nothing. There's nothing pressed.
Yeah,
So
I haven't.
The last few releases too, surprisingly enough, have not been on vinyl, I don't think. So maybe they'll rectify that. So
yeah, I haven't gotten anything from Scorpion since Sting in the Tail. There have been a few I wanted to get the Come Black album, but at some point that might be like, yeah, I'll see if I see it come across and I'll buy it or something.
I
like
bought
that.
every different CD version of Return to Forever. I bought the one with the three discs. I bought the one from Japan. I bought the US version. Yeah.
Oh, the book version, that hardcover book version.
I love these digibooks, right? Like they're a hardcover book.
Which makes me even want like
I got something like this. This is a hardcover book too.
Like the Saxon record, yeah. Like that to me is so funny because it's like they have this beautiful packaging of that Scorpions record. To me it's like it's begging to be like, hey, you should press this to vinyl because you put it out on double vinyl with a booklet. I'm there. So yeah, beautiful work.
Thanks.
There's going to be a huge snowstorm here tomorrow, but I want to go out and get the new Scorpions record now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. It sounds like we had our Scorpions chat. I think we're nearing right on basically 2 hours. Just looking at my clock at time here, I think we're right around the 2 hours. So I think it was a pretty good show, entertaining show. Actually, it was very versed, and I think we have at this point shown every Scorpions album except for the first. We didn't show Fly to the Rainbow, or I think other than that, we showed every single one, or talked about, or touched on every single one, which I probably wasn't expecting that. So that was cool, especially Humanity Hour and some of these other not super popular ones, but yeah, cool stuff. And definitely thanks to all the guests. Thank you guys for doing this. It's great, great. And I don't even think I mentioned this, but this is kind of I know Dave Witherall here next to me really wanted to do Scorpions, so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take requests. I know a couple months ago Dave wanted to do Kiss, so I was like, sure, I'm a big Kiss fan. We'll do Kiss. I like Scorpions. We'll do Scorpions. So yeah, I love when the guests have a request. I was like, great. Someone else has a topic idea. Great, let's run with it. So
yeah.
So Peter, you'll be up next. If you got a request, we'll do it. Unless I know.
Yeah, we'll think about it. You guys took the Kiss one, but I've got like a bunch in my head, so maybe we'll think about it. Maybe what we can do is we can send everyone emails of things that we should do and see what everyone picks, and we'll just grab them.
vote. But anyway, yeah. Thanks for all you guys joining me. Thanks for anyone that does watch in the future after I upload it. It's not live or nothing, but it gets uploaded and people watch it later. But thanks for everybody watching and checking it out, any of those kind of things. And yeah, everybody say their goodbyes and subscribe, Mosh. See you later, all that good stuff. Actually, I was going to open up the.
You guys.
Stay metal.
Y'all take care. And as all, yep. Y'all
Thanks.
take
I like that. Thanks on the Scorpion record. And